Hello, I'm Tom Wilkinson, and welcome to the Thinking in English podcast, a podcast for intermediate to advanced level English learners. 4 years ago, I gave a speech in Japanese in front of over 100 people. I completely forgot my words, started to sweat profusely, and ended up skipping half of the topics I wanted to talk about. I don't want Thinking in English followers to have the same experience as I did. So today, I'm going to give you all some tips and advice on how to become a better public speaker. You can find the full transcript of the episode on thinkinginenglish.blog. Head over to my Instagram page, Thinking in English Podcast, for more content. And leave a like, rating, follow, or review wherever you are listening right now. Public speaking is apparently one of the most common fears that people have. Apparently, up to 75% of all people are scared of talking in front of crowds. Glossophobia, so the scientific word for being scared of public speaking, can affect people in very different ways. Most people get slightly nervous. Others fall into complete and terrified panic. I always remember a junior high school student of mine 5 years ago literally shaking when he was asked to talk in front of his class. Not even a big presentation in front of hundreds of people. The same friends that he had known since he was 5 years old. And it can be even more difficult and fear-inducing for English learners and non-native speakers to speak publicly in their foreign language. I know this from personal experience. I have so many stories about public speaking, and in particular, public speaking in Japanese. I'm not going to tell you all of the stories or details today, but if you'd like to hear them, let me know. But they involve me dressing as Santa Claus in front of 200 4-year-olds and completely freezing, forgetting my words during a speech contest in a theatre, and appearing on a TV show in Japan about sewage. Public speaking can be scary, but it's also an incredibly important and useful skill. Learning to speak confidently and clearly and in a way that is enjoyable for your audience is something that you should all be interested in doing. We need to speak publicly all of the time. University presentations, business meetings, giving a speech at a wedding, or simply talking in front of large groups of people. Moreover, even if you are not scared of speaking publicly, it doesn't mean that you are good at public speaking. I have attended hundreds of presentations and meetings over the past 8 years, and the amount of terrible presentations is incredible. I've listened to presenters who mumbled, who got confused, who didn't make any sense, who sounded incredibly boring, and much more. So, today I want to give you all some tips on public speaking. I want to provide some advice on how to be more confident and how to be a better public speaker. In fact, this is something I have been trying to improve myself, both in English and in Japanese. I'm currently taking a Japanese public speaking and presentation class, and it has inspired me to help everyone listening to be better at public speaking. Now, I am definitely not an expert, and maybe you could assume from my examples earlier that I'm not good at public speaking, but I'm actually quite a confident speaker. And when I made mistakes in those situations I talked about earlier when I was speaking in Japanese, I got a little bit nervous, but I continued and I finished and I did my speaking. And especially in English, I am quite used to speaking in front of crowds now. So I want to give you all some advice and help from my personal experience, and also some that I found online, mainly from Harvard University. So let's get straight into these 8 ways to improve your public speaking. The first tip: don't worry about being nervous. Everyone, or at least most people, get nervous at the thought of talking in front of people. However, being nervous is not the same as performing badly, and you need to remember this. In fact, some nerves can be helpful and make you perform better. Your brain works a little faster, and you are more alert and ready to change when you are nervous. How do you get over your nerves? Practice and prepare. Make sure you know what you are going to talk about, you've made notes, and you've practiced delivering the actual presentation. Preparation is the key to getting over nerves. If you are prepared, there is so much less to fear. Tip 2: know your audience. Who are you talking to? Are you speaking in front of a room of specialists, a business meeting with your colleagues, your best friend's birthday party, or a room of children at a school? You need to know who your audience is. The more information you know about your audience, the easier it is to choose the best vocabulary, difficulty of information, the organization of the presentation, and the design. For example, imagine you were giving a speech about your job. You were talking about everything you do in the day and what your responsibilities are. Now, if you were talking to a group of 6-year-old children, what would you say? If you were talking to your colleagues who work at the same company, what would you say? The same topic, but very different ways of speaking. Knowing the audience is the key to improving your public speaking. And this is something that so many people get wrong. I have worked as an English teacher for a while, although I'd say right now I'm not a professional English teacher. I'd say I'm an English educator, I guess. But I knew so many English teachers who lived in Japan who would speak to elementary school children who don't speak any English in incredibly complicated vocabulary. And I couldn't understand it. I had no idea why these teachers were trying to speak in such fluent and native and complicated English to 10-year-olds and 11-year-olds who didn't speak anything. And for that reason, those teachers were never as successful, I'd say, as some of the other teachers who did adapt, choose their vocabulary uh, correctly, and alter the difficulty of the information. Know who you're talking to. It's really, really important. Tip 3 is to organize, plan, and signpost. You should organize your content and your information in a logical and effective way. Rather than just speaking randomly, think about what you want to say before you say it. What is the topic? What is the purpose of the speech? What is your argument? What are your main points? A good way to keep your audience interested and make sure they understand the speech is by signposting and asking questions. By asking questions or telling people what will happen later in the speech, the audience is prepared and engaged in the topic. In fact, this is something I've been trying on thinking in English. I try to ask questions and then answer them later on. Because if you ask a question, usually a listener wants to know the answer. And you can keep doing this by asking questions before you answer the previous question. And so it keeps people engaged in what you're saying. Be flexible. I know I just said to organize and plan, but don't be too planned and too organized. If something is going wrong, don't be afraid to change and adjust your style. You need to pay attention to the audience, understand how they are reacting to your speech, and adjust what you are saying. Flexibility could involve changing focus slightly, speeding up or slowing down your pace, giving extra explanations or definitions if people look confused, or countless other things. If you have no flexibility and only deliver the speech that you pre-prepared exactly, you are risking boring your audience and maybe even confusing your listeners. Don't be scared of changing things. Be yourself. The next tip is to be yourself. This is something I have learned from personal experience. Be yourself. Don't hide your personality. At the beginning of thinking in English, for example, I tried to be very professional and distant. But over the past year or so, I have realized that my audience, and I guess most people, prefers it when I am myself and when I involve slightly more personal topics, feelings, and content. If you are a real person, the people listening to you will feel more confident listening to you speak. And a great way to show your personality is to use humor and tell stories. Saying something funny, making people laugh, giving an interesting anecdote are all great ways to keep your audience interested. Audiences like personal stories, so use them. But make sure that they are appropriate, relevant, and used effectively. Like a story about myself forgetting the words in a speech contest in the introduction of this episode. Do not read. If I see someone reading a presentation or reading from a piece of paper while publicly speaking, I'm always a little disappointed. Reading out a pre planned speech from a screen or from notes makes it really hard to have a connection with your audience. Of course, you can use notes if you need, but treat your notes as an outline to help you remember and stay focused. Don't write every single thing down that you want to say. By speaking from memory or improvising, you are able to keep eye contact with the audiences, focus on your message, and be flexible. The next tip is to use non-verbal communication. Did you know that over 70% of communication is non-verbal, not using our words? So when you are speaking publicly, you need to also think about your non-verbal communication. How do you look? How do you sound? You should stand calm and confident. You should keep your voice powerful and clear. And if appropriate, try to smile. More directly, don't cross your arms. Keep your head up and your eyes open. Try to stand naturally and don't shake your legs. Look into the audience. Try to limit the use of utterances. So, utterances are things like, you know. Once a person notices that you use these too much, it can become really distracting. So I really encourage you to stop using you know. Start strong and end strong. And finally, start strong, end strong. Simple as that. Starting a speech or presentation powerfully, maybe by using a personal story, a fact, or a statistic that shocks the crowd, is a great way to make sure people are interested in listening to you. I have attended guest lectures by professors from around the world, and the best speakers usually start with a joke or funny comment to get the audience engaged, or at least some interesting story. If you start boring, the audience probably assumes everything else you say will be boring and is already half asleep. You should also end strong. Endings can be really difficult. I know this from thinking in English. Try to summarize everything you said in a few short sentences and finish with a strong statement that everyone will remember. So here is today's final thought. On this episode of Thinking in English, I have tried to give you all a few tips and pieces of advice to improve your public speaking. Speaking publicly in a foreign language is terrifying. I know from personal experience, but it is a really useful skill to master and improve. Have you ever given a speech or made a presentation in English? How did it go? Do you have any advice for thinking in English listeners? Well, if so, please leave a comment on the blog, a comment on Spotify, or send me a message on Instagram. And while you're over at Instagram, why don't you follow me as well? Getting closer and closer to 5,000 followers, hopefully by the end of the summer. Leave a like, a rating, subscribe, follow, review, wherever you are listening right now. We're also getting very close to 1,000 ratings on Spotify, which is absolutely incredible. Um, what else? If you'd like to donate to Thinking in English, you can do. There's a link in the description of the podcast or on the blog. Everything really, really helps me to keep making these episodes for all of you. And yeah, you can reach out to me on Instagram. I hope you all have a great week, and I'll see you next time.